The common, untrained response to disrespect, whether it's an unwarranted insult, a dismissive tone, or an unfair accusation, is immediate, fiery reaction. We feel compelled to defend, to correct, to explain ourselves. We rush to prove the aggressor wrong, believing that only a swift, verbal counterpunch can save our dignity. This need for an immediate response is, in fact, the weakest possible move. It is a desperate, external plea for validation, and it immediately concedes control of your inner state to the person who disrespected you. The ultimate power move against disrespect is not defense, but calculated silence. This is the paradox of silence. The world tells you that a strong man must speak up, must fight for his honor. The Stoic mentor tells you that a truly strong man does not need to fight for something he already possesses internally. His worth is not conditional on the opinion of others. When you react instantly, you are essentially saying, "Your words have the power to wound me, and I must use my energy to heal the wound you inflicted." You confirm the disrespecter's power. But when you meet their aggression with a calm, deliberate silence, you are declaring a profound truth. This external event is irrelevant to my internal valuation. Think of it as the dichotomy of control applied to reputation. You do not control what they say, but you absolutely control your response. By choosing silence, you refuse to grant the disrespect the power it craves. You deny it the dignity of an answer. I spent decades in the high-stakes, ruthless tech industry, where every meeting was a subtle play for dominance. Early in my career, any perceived slight, a roll of the eyes from a competitor, a condescending remark from a partner, would trigger a spiral of anxiety or an immediate, aggressive defense. I thought I was showing strength in reality. I was displaying my vulnerability, showing them exactly which buttons to push to destabilize me. My success was built on a foundation of sand, because my peace was constantly being dictated by the volatile external world. The shift came when I began to study Seneca's teachings on anger. He viewed anger not as a natural response to injustice, but as a temporary madness, a self-inflicted wound. He understood that when we allow someone to make us angry, we are giving them an immense, unchecked power over us. A practical habit. The next time a statement lands that feels disrespectful, practice the two-breath pause. Do not speak for at least 2 full, conscious breaths. In that pause, mentally label the aggressor's action as not my business. Their poor behavior, their lack of manners, their flawed judgment, it is their problem, a consequence of their own undisciplined mind. It is not yours to clean up, to carry, or to react to. This pause reclaims your mental sovereignty. Reflective question. Are you defending your reputation to satisfy your own ego's fear, or are you conserving your energy to maintain your peace and focus on what you truly control? When a strong man stays silent in the face of disrespect, he is not mute. He is communicating something far more potent than any retort. His silence is a loaded statement, a demonstration of unassailable self-respect. Silence in this context sends 3 vital messages, each one undermining the aggressor's attempt to control you. The person who attacks you believes they hold the scale upon which your worth is measured. Your quick defense validates that belief. Silence communicates. My worth is a settled matter. It was determined by my effort and my character, and it is entirely independent of your assessment. This is the very definition of Stoic autarky. Self-sufficiency. When you operate from a position of inner certainty, the need to argue to prove your case simply dissolves. You know who you are, and that knowledge is your armor. A general does not waste ammunition on a nuisance fly. Toxic behavior, including disrespect, is almost always an attempt to manipulate, to shame you into compliance, to anger you into a mistake, or to drag you into an emotional battle. Your silence signifies indifference. It tells the aggressor, I see the game you are playing, and I refuse to play. By withholding the emotional reaction they seek, you cut off the oxygen to their drama. They want the fuel of your anger or your fear. When you give them nothing but rational calm, the attempt collapses. The true strength of character is the ability to walk away from the invitation to a chaotic fight. Perhaps the most powerful message silence sends is one of mastery. It shows the disrespecter that they did not succeed in provoking you. They hit the button, and the explosion they expected never occurred. You have successfully introduced the Epictetus gap, the crucial space between the external event and your internal response. You are the gatekeeper of your inner citadel, and you chose to keep the gates closed. Your silence essentially declares, "I command my emotions, you do not." I recall a moment in a negotiation where a much older, more established figure attempted to intimidate me by belittling my age and experience in front of others. My instinct was a tidal wave of resentment and a dozen cutting remarks. Instead, I remembered the teaching. Control your assent to the impression. I took a drink of water, looked him calmly in the eye, and simply waited for him to finish. When he stopped, I proceeded with my next logical point, completely ignoring his personal attack. It was as if I had merely paused for him to clear his throat. The power instantly flowed back to me because I demonstrated that his personal attack was irrelevant to the objective reality of the negotiation. A practical habit. The moment you feel the heat of disrespect, mentally categorize the attack. Is this useful data, or is it merely noise? If it's noise, a personal attack, a judgmental comment, treat it as such. Acknowledge the person's presence with a calm, neutral gaze, then physically turn your attention back to the task or to a neutral party. Reflective question. Does your current method of response reveal an inner belief that you need the aggressor is acceptance to be okay, or does it project an unshakable belief in your own, self-validated worth? Silence is not a blanket rule for every situation. It is a strategy used by the rational mind to achieve the highest possible aim, the preservation of inner peace and the maintenance of virtue. We must differentiate between silence as strength and silence as avoidance or cowardice. Silence is strategic. When the aggressor is irrational. If the person is driven by anger, drunkenness, insecurity, or is simply incapable of rational thought, engaging them in a verbal debate is like trying to reason with a storm. You will only be soaked and exhausted. Silence preserves your sanity. Marcus Aurelius noted, "It is a man's duty to tell the truth, but no more than his duty is it to observe the limits of his own sphere of action. Your sphere is not the correction of irrational fools. The disrespect is a bait. When the clear goal is to provoke you into a loss of composure that validates the aggressor, own narrative, silence is the refusal to take the bait. Your calm defeats their entire purpose. This is particularly true in public or professional settings, where losing your temper is more damaging to your reputation than their insult is. Your character is already known. If you have built a reputation of integrity, discipline, and competence, the reputation of a strong man, then a single petty insult cannot penetrate your armor. Your body of work, your consistent behavior, speaks volumes louder than any fleeting words. The defense is already established. Silence here is a sign of confidence. Silence is avoidance. When it is a clear violation of a core boundary that requires a firm, non-negotiable policy statement. If silence means you allow financial, physical, or moral lines to be crossed, then it is a dereliction of your responsibility to yourself. It is an issue that requires objective clarification for a neutral third party, such as correcting an important fact for a client or manager. Here, you speak to the fact calmly and rationally, not to the personal disrespect. The key is that in the strategic silence, you are not cowering, you are choosing. You are not suppressing a desire to yell, you are rationally deciding that the conservation of your inner resource is a superior objective to the fleeting satisfaction of a retort. I often mentor men who confuse aggression with strength. I had a mentee, Mark, who was constantly getting into arguments with a difficult neighbor. Mark felt the need to respond to every passive-aggressive slight. I had him journal his energy output. He realized he was wasting hours of mental and emotional time a week on a man who didn't matter. I advised him to switch his strategy to strategic non-engagement. The next time the neighbor made a nasty comment, Mark just smiled neutrally, nodded once, and kept walking. The neighbor's reaction? Confusion and a loss of momentum. Mark's result? A preserved Sunday afternoon and zero anxiety. A practical habit. Identify the most frequent source of petty disrespect in your life. Before the next encounter, mentally script your silent victory plan. It will be one of two things: a single, calm, fact-based boundary statement, or a complete, internal non-response. Commit to the latter 90% of the time. Reflective question. Is your desire to respond coming from a place of rational necessity to protect a material boundary, or is it an emotional demand from your wounded ego demanding external proof of its worth? The ability to meet disrespect with calm silence is not a trick, it is the symptom of deep, internal work. You cannot fake indifference under pressure. If you try, the tension in your face, the tremor in your voice, will betray your inner turmoil. True silence comes from a place of unshakable confidence that requires no external defense. This unshakable confidence is the result of applying two core stoic principles. The most profound defense against slander is complete self-knowledge. When someone attacks you, calling you lazy, stupid, or dishonest, and you know with rational certainty that you have consistently acted with industry, reason, and integrity, the insult simply cannot stick. As Marcus Aurelius observed, "If anyone can refute me, show me that I am making a mistake or seeing things wrongly, I shall gladly change. It is the truth that I seek, and the truth never harmed anyone." The strong man asks, is there a grain of truth in this criticism? If yes, he quietly accepts it as a useful data point for self-improvement and ignores the hostile delivery. If no, he disregards it entirely because his own, rational self-assessment is the only court that matters. The man who truly knows his own character is immune to slander because he has already conducted the honest audit himself. Confidence is not a feeling, it is the track record of promises kept to yourself. To build a mind that is unbothered by external criticism, you must constantly reinforce your own internal integrity. The discipline of effort, consistently exerting your best effort in your primary duties. When you know you have done everything in your power to prepare to execute and to maintain integrity, the failure or the criticism that follows becomes an external event that reflects on the world as chaos, not your inner failing. Voluntary discomfort. The practice of voluntarily engaging in difficult, uncomfortable tasks, physical, mental, or emotional. This builds resilience. The man who has willingly subjected himself to hardship knows his own mettle. A petty insult loses its sting when compared to the challenge you willingly faced at dawn. Rational reflection. Consistently recording your judgments, your reactions, and your adherence to your virtues. This practice, the essence of meditations, makes you the sole, final judge of your character. When you are the only judge you truly respect, the opinions of lesser judges fade into irrelevance. This inner work transforms you. You move from being a man whose peace is external, dependent on the goodwill of others, to one whose peace is internal, a fortress built upon the bedrock of his own disciplined character. A practical habit. Start a daily integrity log. List one small promise you made to yourself today. At the end of the day, mark it kept or broken. This trains your mind to trust your own word, which is the ultimate source of self-respect. Reflective question. If you were to conduct a completely honest, rational audit of your character today, what flaws would you admit to yourself? And how would that honest acceptance make you immune to the same criticism coming from an external enemy? This principle of strategic, powerful silence is not new. It is the hallmark of the Stoic masters who understood that true warfare is mental. Their lives serve as powerful, silent sermons on the mastery of disrespect. Epictetus, a towering figure in Stoicism, began his life as a slave. One famous story, perhaps apocryphal but deeply illustrative, recounts that his master, testing Epictetus's resolve, began twisting his leg until it snapped. Epictetus, with complete calm, simply remarked, "I told you that you would break it." This is the ultimate example of strategic indifference. Epictetus' silence beforehand communicated that the master's physical power had no influence over his mental sovereignty. His calm statement afterward was not a complaint, but a detached statement of fact, entirely devoid of emotion. He controlled his judgment and his response to a catastrophic event. If a strong man can meet physical violence with such quiet resolution, how can a mere petty insult wound him? Cato the Younger was a fierce defender of the Roman Republic and an uncompromising Stoic who often faced the ridicule and disrespect of political opponents and street mobs. Once, when he was speaking publicly, a mob began to physically assault him and drag him from the forum. The attacks were brutal. When he was rescued and returned to the forum, he was advised to press charges against the rioters. Cato simply refused, stating that he would not waste his time pursuing men who were driven by such ignorance and malice. His silence and refusal to engage was a strategic statement. "Your actions are beneath my notice and my energy." He treated the emotional chaos of the mob as a predictable force of nature, a storm he waited out, not a personal attack he needed to dignify with a response. He reserved his strength for the rational fight that mattered, the defense of the Republic. As emperor, Marcus Aurelius was surrounded by sycophants, ambitious rivals, and men who secretly despised him and hoped for his failure. His primary response to their inevitable disrespect and manipulation was to use his journal, meditations, not to plot revenge, but to prepare his mind. He would silently remind himself of their flaws, not to condemn them, but to accept them as part of the human world he had to manage. His silence in court was his most formidable weapon. He moved with caution, accepted the reality of human flaw, and reserved his judgment only for himself. The message from history is clear. Silence is the language of control. It is the signature of a man who understands that the only battle he must win is the one fought within his own mind. When you master your internal world, the external world, and its petty disrespects, loses all its terror. A practical habit. Identify a contemporary figure you admire who handles pressure with calm. Before your next difficult interaction, briefly visualize their composure. Let their example serve as a silent, powerful template for your own strategic silence. Reflective question. Are you using your energy to fight a visible, external battle that is already lost, or are you conserving it to win the invisible, internal war that truly defines your character? We have established that the silence of a strong man is not empty. It is a profound declaration of self-mastery and rational choice. It communicates that his worth is non-negotiable, his emotional state is commanded from within, and his energy is too valuable to waste on the petty games of others. To possess this kind of silence is to be unconquerable. When you move through the world, let your competence and your composure speak for you. Let your deeds be your defense. When faced with disrespect, do not react with the weakness of a fragile ego. Instead, pause, exercise your rational choice, and demonstrate the ultimate strength, the strength of indifference. The challenge is simple. Can you stand so firmly in your own self-respect that the need for external validation, even in the form of a retort, simply vanishes? The man who can answer that with a calm, internal yes is the man who has built an iron mind. Begin the practice today. Conserve your energy. Command your peace. Your silence is your power.